Hello, my name is Martina, and in this video I'm going to talk about UTIs. So I'm going to put chapters in the video so that you can skip to certain topics if you are interested in them. I am going to specifically talk about my first UTI, the the horrible year I had of chronic UTIs, my journey with the chronic UTI clinic in London and all the antibiotics that I took, and my diet for insulin resistance and how that really improved my UTIs. So yeah, keep watching if you are interested, and thank you. Okay, so let's start with what is a UTI. What does UTI mean? UTI means urinary tract infection, and as the name explains, it's an infection of your bladder or your urinary tract. Some symptoms include a sudden need to pee and usually a burning sensation when peeing. When it gets worse, like it happened for me a few times, you can also get pain in your lower abdomen, in your kidneys. So these are the main symptoms. Now I wanted to start with the first time I got a UTI. I was about 18, and I remember that I woke up in the middle of the night needing to pee. So I went to the bathroom and used the toilet. That was fine. I didn't even know that UTIs existed. So I was like, yeah, okay, I just needed to pee. I went back to bed, and like half an hour later, I woke up again because I needed to pee again. So I again went to the bathroom, and this time it burned. I was like, oh shit, what is this? What is happening? I kind of spent the rest of the night sitting on the toilet because I had this constant urge to pee, and I literally couldn't do anything else. I was in pain. It was very uncomfortable. It was horrible. I think I took some paracetamol, something like that, which made me feel a little better. But yeah, obviously it didn't last very long. So the day after, I told my mom. She was like, yeah, you probably have cystitis. Let's go to the pharmacy. We went to the pharmacy and they gave me some cranberry supplements to drink, and they told me to drink a lot of water. So I did that. I took the supplements, I drank a lot of water, and things didn't really improve. My UTI was actually getting worse and worse, to the point that I was peeing blood at some point because my insides were so inflamed that they were bleeding. So a few days passed and I was feeling so bad. I developed a fever. I was taking so many paracetamols and other stuff to ease the pain. My kidneys started to hurt because the infection spread to my kidneys. It was horrible. So my mom brought me to this night. I was living in Italy then, so we have this night kind of emergency GP that you can go to. I went to this doctor, and based on my symptoms, he said, yeah, you definitely have a UTI. I will give you some antibiotics, you will feel better. So the morning after we went to get antibiotics, I was a mess. I remember that I was in my pajamas. I was in pain. I had a fever, and so I went to the pharmacy, got these antibiotics, and after I took them, it went away. So the antibiotics got rid of it. So this was the first really bad UTI that I got. And from then, I would get 1 or 2 UTIs a year, not a lot. So this was until I moved to the UK and started my first job here. My first job here was a really stressful job, and I am not complaining. I am grateful I had a job which allowed me to move here, but it was really stressful. I was doing shift work, I was working nights, weekends, and the job itself was really stressful. And I think that this stress caused my UTI to come back in full force. It came to a point during that year when I had UTIs basically every single week. It was really painful. It completely changed my day-to-day life. My days off were basically spent in bed dealing with a UTI. So yeah, I was trying to deal with it, kind of taking antibiotics every now and then, trying not to take them every single time. And it was really, after a few months of this, it was starting to get really hard on my mental health. I remember being in bed and crying and saying, is this ever going to go away? Like, I was not living my life, I was not doing anything, I was just working, and during my days off I was suffering. And something that I noticed is that I used to get flare-ups when I was relaxed after really stressful days. So it's like my body, I don't know what happened, but my body relaxed, and that triggered a UTI flare-up. And I tried to kind of solve this with the help of my GP. It didn't really bring me anywhere, because my GP would say, do a urine test. They would test my urine, and maybe they would not find any bacteria in it, and they would say, there is no bacteria, you don't have a problem, bye-bye. Even though I was actually in pain. So I don't know what was happening. I don't know if I actually always had bacteria in my urine or not, or if it was more interstitial cystitis, where basically the tissue of my bladder was so ruined that I was constantly getting these flare-ups. But the thing is that it was still an unlivable situation for me, so I had to do something. I started doing some research, and I found this chronic UTI clinic in Harley Street in London. The name of the main doctor was Professor Malone Lee, and he basically specializes in chronic UTIs. So because I was in a really bad state, both mentally and physically, I decided to try this clinic. Now, let me say that at this time of my life, I did not have a lot of money. So the money I was making was basically just enough to pay my rent and food and stuff, but I didn't really make a lot of money. As you probably know, everything in Harley Street is expensive. Every consultation I went to with this doctor was, if I remember correctly, around 250 pounds. But I had to do this because I couldn't do nothing. So I had to do it. So I decided to spend this money and go to this UTI clinic. Now, I didn't go with Professor Malone Lee because he was like fully booked. So I went with one of the doctors that works with him and like under him in this clinic. So it was more or less the same. I'm sure that they all follow the same guidelines and treatments. I went to my first consultation with this doctor, and he asked me a bunch of questions like, how many times do you pee a day? Do you wake up in the night to go to the bathroom? Does it burn? Does it burn before? Does it burn after? Does sex make it worse? Do certain foods make it worse? All things like that. And then he took a sample of my urine and examined it. So usually what GPs do when you drop off a urine sample to them. I don't know what kind of test they do, but it's like a long test that takes a couple of weeks. I think it's called a urine culture. Whereas this doctor said that, explained, that I also read on the various papers that they published, that urine cultures sometimes are not the best type of test to provide. So he literally took a sample of my urine and examined it under the microscope. Now, I am not a doctor at all, so I will just explain what I understood and what I remember from those consultations. So he basically, I think he was looking at cells, and especially the type of cells that indicate an infection. So I remember on the results that he gave me, I could see the word pus cells. So this is definitely something that he was looking at. So he was basically trying to count the number of cells that indicated an infection in my urine. So he did this and he said, yes, you do have an infection, so you need to do an antibiotic treatment. So he prescribed me these antibiotics. He gave me cefalexin, which is an antibiotic that is very commonly used to treat UTIs, and he also gave me another one. So I was taking, I think, about 3 tablets a day of cefalexin and 2 of the other one. Could have been 3 or 4 of cefalexin, I'm not sure. He said, do this for, I think it was 2 or 3 months, and then I will see you again and let's see how it's going. So I started the treatment and I instantly felt better. So when I came back about 3 months later, I was really happy because I was starting my life again. I could do stuff, you know, I could get out of the house. He was happy as well. He examined my urine and he saw that these infection cells kind of went down, but they were still not to zero. So he suggested that I continued this treatment. This whole thing of consultation, continuing the treatment, going back, checking how it's going, this went on for about a year. And during the year, he increased my antibiotics dosage because apparently my body was not fighting the infection completely, so he was increasing the dosage to the point that I was taking so many antibiotics a day that when people saw how many antibiotics I was taking, they were shocked. They were like, you are taking that many? And I realized that I was developing antibiotic resistance, which is a thing. So I was taking so many for such a long time that my body was not even responding to them anymore. In fact, during the last few months, I was starting to feel worse again. So I went to see the doctor and he wanted to increase my antibiotic dosage more, but I kind of refused. I thought, this is enough. I've been taking antibiotics for more than a year. I've been taking so many. These must not be good for my body. So I decided to stop. I stopped gradually. I didn't stop everything at the same time. So I kind of diminished my dose week by week until I went down to 0. Additional reason why I did this was that I knew that I would be trying to conceive very shortly, and obviously I wanted my body to be, let's say, as clean as possible before I started doing that. As soon as I stopped antibiotics, my UTI came back and it was really bad. But I kind of started trying to control it without antibiotics. So I started trying to control it with, maybe I would just take some paracetamol, maybe I would put like a hot water bottle on my tummy, drink a lot of water, things like that. The thing that changed my life. So I have another video where I talk about my fertility journey and my PCOS and what I did to conceive. And part of that journey was discovering that I have insulin resistance, which I found out is correlated with recurrent UTIs. When I started treating my insulin resistance with the goal of conceiving, I noticed that my UTIs disappeared, basically. So I will talk about it a little bit here as well, because I think it's very relevant for the scope of this video. So what is insulin resistance? So insulin resistance is when your body's cells don't respond properly to the insulin that your body makes or the insulin you inject as a medication. Because your body cannot use the insulin as it should, your blood sugar levels can increase. So I started treating my insulin resistance. I was vegan until this point. I was living in Brighton, so I feel like Brighton is the paradise for vegans. I was happy as a vegan. So I was eating a lot of carbs, actually, which I feel like a lot of vegan people do. But carbs are not great if you have insulin resistance. So when I started my diet for treating insulin resistance, I tried to stay vegan for a while, but I realized very quickly that I couldn't, just because I did not have enough choice of food to eat. So what was my diet for insulin resistance? This can be different from woman to woman. Some people can allow themselves a bit more, some people have to be more strict, so you really have to understand what works for you. In general, if you have insulin resistance, the suggested diet is a kind of healthy keto, let's say, so a low carb, low sugar diet that is rich in fibers and protein. So just to give you an example, before starting this diet, for breakfast I would eat porridge, which I thought was healthy. But the thing is that I realized that porridge is actually a lot of carbs and it can be very sugary as well, because we make porridge, we put like honey or fruit or chocolate or other things, and even though it kind of looks healthy, it's actually like a calorie, not even calorie, but it's like a carbs and sugar loaded meal. So I replaced that with eggs and vegetables. For lunch, as a vegan, I would usually make like a pasta with veggies, maybe some tempeh or tofu, things like that. So when I started my insulin resistance diet, I started eating more salads, and I introduced some fish into my diet, so I would eat maybe some tuna. I started eating some chicken, which I don't eat anymore now, but I did eat it then because I really needed something to bring up my protein intake, and it was really hard for me to do that with a vegan diet. I know that there are tempeh, tofu, seitan, and all these options, but soy is not the best thing for your hormones. So yeah, I introduced a few more protein alternatives. For dinner, when I was vegan, I would eat something like maybe a vegan burger, or I would make like a vegan lasagna or vegan pizza. So yeah, my previous diet was very carb intense. With my new healthy keto diet, I replaced that with maybe soups made with sweet potatoes and vegetables and things like that, with some additional protein like a piece of salmon, or even like I would still eat like tofu or tempeh sometimes. So I eliminated certain foods from my diet, like sugary stuff, really processed foods that are full of sugar, like lots of protein bars that they actually have a lot of sugar, so I eliminated that. I used to drink orange juice every morning, and I also eliminated that because I found out that orange juice is actually very sugary. I didn't eat bananas. Maybe that was too much, but still, I was really determined to get better. So I didn't eat bananas because I know that they are one of the fruits with the highest glycemic index. I was already not eating any dairy, so I continued not eating dairy. I tried to go gluten-free for a while, even though I stopped doing that very quickly because I realized that gluten was actually not an issue for me. I am not intolerant or sensitive to gluten in any way, but if you think you might be, try go gluten-free for a few months. I also changed my workout routine, so I started walking a lot more and doing lower intensity workout. So I was still working out every day, or 6 days out of 7, but instead of doing like 1 hour super intense boot camp classes like I used to do before, I started doing lower intensity stuff. I printed a list with foods and their respective glycemic index, and I put that on my fridge so that I could look at it and say, oh, okay, this is okay for me, no, this is too much. It helped me a little bit, and it was a process. So it was not perfect. I really had to learn what to eat and how to eat it. I had to incorporate more foods because coming from the vegan diet that I had before, I kind of had to relearn how to cook food because I was vegan for years, so I didn't know how to cook fish or meat at all, and I'm still learning. I still don't know how to cook a lot of stuff. I eliminated refined carbohydrates and replaced them with complex carbohydrates. So for example, instead of pasta, I would eat quinoa or lentils or things like that. I kept this up for months and months, actually more than a year. I only stopped when I got pregnant and I was so nauseous and I had food aversion so strong that I couldn't eat at all what I was eating before. Otherwise, I would have continued, and I will continue. I mean, that diet will probably be the diet for the rest of my life. This diet really helped my UTI get better. I was really surprised because I didn't think it would happen, but during the year of me doing this diet, I never got a UTI flare up anymore. I absolutely think that antibiotics are important and fundamental in some situations, but I also now do strongly believe in the power of food as medicine. And I do think that if you work hard and do your research and are really focused on the diet that is best for you and your conditions, that can make a huge difference, even more than taking medicine. I got my first, let's say, UTI back when soon after getting pregnant, because being pregnant can make you more prone to UTIs, first of all, and then I also changed my diet. I was only eating like Pringles and carbs, and that was all I could eat. So I got a UTI and took antibiotics, which I normally would try and avoid, but because I am and because I was pregnant, I didn't want to risk any harm to the baby, so I just took the antibiotics as the doctor said. Yeah, so this is the story. My takeaways from all of these situations and of my journey are: you are not alone if you are experiencing this. Unfortunately, a lot of women are, and I read stories about a lot of women who struggle with chronic UTIs, and it can be really, really hard on both your physical and mental health. Do your research, try and change your diet, because food has a bigger influence on who we are and how our bodies work than we think. So just changing your diet could help improve so many of your conditions. I hope I could help someone with this video. So yeah, subscribe if you want to see more. Okay, bye.